Hi, my name is Lauren Stauffer, and I'm here to talk to you about my unit plan, which is um, basically part of a storytelling unit. It is a digital storytelling project, and it is a project-based learning, kind of a culminating event of their year working with preschool students. So this is a high school class, and they work with preschool students, and they're doing a movie telling a story about a child. So first of all, I need to kind of have a disclaimer here. I used the Sandbox course for creating my class because I typically, our district uses Schoology, so everything is on Schoology for me and for my students that I've created. So I definitely had a learning curve because I've never used D2L for anything. And so when I was creating this, I felt like I had everything created in Schoology and then had to also create it in D2L. And I was not familiar with D2L. So I definitely had a learning curve and felt at times very frustrated, not knowing what I was doing with that. But thankfully, Ollie had some videos that helped me, but it's the design of the course and the way it looks is not exactly how I would want it to look. I'd want it to be more colorful and fancy and a little more graphics and things, but I didn't know how to do that. So I did the best I could with the outline of the course and what was needed. So I will show you some of the Schoology course toward the end, just so you can kind of see the real thing and what my students, because I'm actually teaching this right now currently, what they're actually doing. So first of all, just so you're aware, this is a project that we are doing. I do have a checklist created so students could check off. I think that's really important. I found that was very helpful with Ollie's classes, and I wanted them to be able to do the same so they would know exactly, what is due for each day. As far as the communication structures of the class, this is a synchronous and asynchronous. So typically we are in class with in-person students. However, there are some students that are temporary virtual, and they, of course, will be doing this project asynchronously. They are able to come in through Google Meets with me and work too. So it's kind of a combination, honestly. Right now, this is interesting, is this week we are doing Keystone exams, and so students only have to come in if they have a Keystone exam. Therefore, the project's going to be asynchronous. So it has to be adaptable and flexible, which I did make it that way. So building community. So for this, I definitely have communications with students. There is peer editing. There is also a Padlet where the students will go to a gallery walk. I'm going to show you an actual live one here. So you can see this is actually the one where my students really did it. So they would actually comment on the children and say different characteristics about the child. So we use Padlet so they could communicate with each other and add to different conversations about the children. And then also, they also did things like peer editing of their script. So they would have to post and peer edit of their script here. And then I had students, giving feedback, one glow, one grow, one suggestion. They did the same thing with the actual movie at the end of the project, which is what they're going to be doing this week. They will be peer editing as well with their project. Discussion posts are also in my course. I felt that that's very important for them to comment on each other's, posts and respond to each other. You'll see on here is there is my OAR article is a discussion post. There's also times where I have them, checking in, doing a required check-in. So there is definitely some times in here where they're actually doing some discussions and kind of building a community, whether they're asynchronous or synchronous. Also, I will say that on my Schoology site, I do have virtual learner expectations for parents, for students, so they kind of know what the expectation is. Because I was just focusing on the unit plan for this project, I did not include my virtual learning folder that has all those expectations, but I do want to let you know they're there. The SEL strategies, as I mentioned, there are check-ins, there are Google Meets that they have to do. that they can attend to learn about the different things going on. There is also, I mentioned already, peer editing, where they'll be actually peer editing the work and learning about each other and what they're doing. It is definitely creativity in the project. Yes, they're using iMovie, but I chose to use iMovie just because that is something that is very user-friendly. Every student has an iPad, so I know that they all have that, and it's we check to make sure it's updated and so forth. So it's just what I feel comfortable and what I think we find works best with being uploaded and then being able to share it with the parents as well, because the parents get a copy of this movie at the end of the year. Meaning preschool parents get a copy. It is also very student-centered, so really I'm kind of facilitating, but the students are taking charge and doing the project. So I give them the photos, the resources, and then it's their job to take it from there and make it their own and tell their story. I give suggestions and advice on their scripts, but really it's their doing. For the standards, the national standards of quality online courses, first of all, A6 is demonstrating time management strategies. So what I will tell you is I broke this project down. You'll see here like day 2 project tasks. Here is all the tasks that the students need to complete with links and so forth. I give them examples of everything. There's examples of movies, there's examples of scripts, so they can see, there's my, OER article right there. So they have, they know when they're due and what they're supposed to. Definitely different types of tools. We use the Padlet like I showed you. Obviously we're using iMovie, Google Docs, and we're doing different, reading an article and then responding. So there's a YouTube tutorial. So it's very a very variety of activities for them to interact with each other. Another national standard of quality online courses suggests that you demonstrate troubleshooting skills, and I definitely feel like that's something that is very important. My actually co-teacher, my colleague, she and I have taught this together, and she and I created lots of movies and tutorials for students, so they have an idea of what to do. So if I click on this, you'll see we have a whole playlist of what to do, how to do this, and what works best for our pictures. For our movies and our projects. So there's a whole playlist of tons of different movies and how to save, edit pictures, record, so that students know how to do that. So we try to answer those questions just by allowing them to do those tutorials rather than always coming to us for everything. C1 employs learner-centered instructional strategies. I think it's a very learner-centered project, as I mentioned. And then I said about netiquette, and I think I mentioned that is on my Schoology page about proper netiquette. But I do also have auto recording tips in here to help them to know how to, do auto recording and what's expected and what's not okay. As far as assessments go, so I give them a pre-assessment in the very beginning to kind of find out what do they know about iMovie, how familiar are they with storytelling? Did they learn about storytelling when I taught it? So here's the pre-assessment. I think I'll show you, this might be, yeah. So it's a pre-assessment. How well do you think you know about storytelling? How confident are you? How much interaction do you have with children? Times for Google Meets. Are you familiar and knowledgeable with the following technologies? Because these are all technologies we're going to be using in this class, in this project. All that kind of stuff. That was actually the post assessment I just showed you, sorry. But you get the idea. So it's a pre and a post to kind of see, well, here's what you know in the beginning. So I kind of know how much they know. And then in the end, we did it just to show the growth that occurred. And then my last, of course, assessment is ultimately the rubric for the project. And so there's a rubric, and then there's the post assessment that I just showed you. And also, here's an example of the rubric where it explains kind of, all the different criteria. But then also I have self-grading. And this was something that was an SEL strategy I read about in our course about just having the students then grade themselves. So how do you think you did on the project? And then they use the exact same rubric and they grade themselves. So this is something I also incorporated in my unit plan as an assessment. So it's a self-assessment, and then of course my assessment would be the rubric too. Now, when I talk to my students, so first I'm going to switch over to my Schoology course because this is what they actually were using. So although the information is the same, I could not have them access the D2L course because it's a Millersville course. But as I said, everything was basically brought over from Schoology over to there to fit the D2L format. My students felt like they went much faster, and I felt like they were going way faster than I thought. Like for them to go through and sort pictures and edit them, it took them probably less than a period, and I was expecting it to take longer than that. So most of them are done within half the period, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're moving really quickly. And it's interesting because I've done this project on the iPads now. This is the second time. I did it through the pandemic and then here in class, asynchronous and synchronous, and then they still it went fast. So they were much faster. I chunked everything down, as you can see, into days. If I were to do this again, I would not chunk it into days. And you could even see that in my D2L. I had everything chunked by days. But honestly, I think I would just do like a module 1 or day 1, day 2, or just say, here's editing pictures. Not so much broken down by the day because they seem to go fast and go right through it. I guess it doesn't matter if there's no completion in each folder, and it doesn't matter if they can do 3 folders in one day, but that was definitely something that was an eye-opener for me. They like the organization of it all, so you can see, just like I have on the D2L course, they go to a certain day and there's explanations of exactly what they need to do. And as I said, I'm very detailed, so everything's pretty detailed of what to do. Look, still confused. Oh, here, add pictures. Let's see how to do it. Here, look, click on this link, and it'll take you to an YouTube tutorial. And then the one thing they did not like was the article that I gave them to read, which was the article about storytelling, digital storytelling, and kind of reminding them of storytelling techniques. They did not like reading the article and discussing that. They felt like it was a waste of time. High school students. The praise, organizing, the troubleshooting tutorials they thought were helpful, and they thought everything was very detailed, which was good. So they didn't have trouble understanding what exactly to do. As I mentioned about polishing, I felt like D2L, it was just a new course for me. It was a new design. I had never done it before, so I definitely think there's lots of things to polish up on. Transferring everything from Schoology to D2L was difficult. But I would definitely change the dates, like I said, and not include them and make it modules or just days, day 1, day 2, not by a date. What I would ponder is, a couple things. Number 1, the peer editing I'm doing through Google Docs or upload my movie, but what happens if their movies are too long and I can't upload them to Schoology to a discussion post and they can't respond to each other? That might be a concern that I have, that I need to figure that out. The other thing is what do I do if Padlet, I found out from our district, Padlet is no longer, that we're no longer able to use Padlet. So this will probably be the last time using Padlet in my district. So I have to figure out another app that might work better, or maybe, will work the same for that. So definitely incorporating more of the peer editing. I did not try the Google breakout rooms or Zoom breakout rooms. I would love to. I'm a little hesitant. I'm a little nervous about the security of that, but that's definitely something I'd be willing to try. So that's my ponder for this unit plan. So again, thank you very much for taking this learning walk with me.